Star-studded Time's Up charities spent big on salaries, little on helping victims. How many times have you guys seen this with charities in general, huh? This is just fucking insane. They tend to do this. Like, if you give money to a charity, just a tiny fraction of the money you give will actually go to those the charity purports to help. Most of the rest of that money will go into the pockets of the people running the charity. There are there are a few decent ones out there, but you have to do your research before you give money to a charity. But this, all the big names that were virtue signaling all over Pound Me Too, all they did was part fools from their money. Hollywood's Time's Up organization, set up to fight sexual harassment with Reese Witherspoon, Amy Schumer, and Brie Larson. Now, I haven't really seen Reese Witherspoon doing anything too dumb recently, but Amy Schumer and Brie Larson, they made bank off of this Pound Me Too shit. It's almost like it's a big grift, and they don't really care about women being sexually abused. And other luminaries on his board spends the bulk of its donations on executive salaries and only a fraction on legal costs to help victims, public records show. So since this is a charity, all of their records have to be public. And now we know it's a little bit late because we don't get to see their tax paperwork, for a year plus in a lot of cases, but it's out. The organization, which is comprised of Time's Up Foundation and Time's Up Now Incorporated, raised $3,670,219 in current year -2, but spent $1,407,032 on salaries and only $312,001 on the Time's Up Legal Defense Fund for people who have experienced sexual harassment. Correction, for women who have experienced sexual harassment. If it was a dude who was harassed by a woman, they couldn't care less. Charity watchdog groups such as Charity Navigator recommend that nonprofits spend 75% of their revenues on their mission and 25% on administration. Time's Up spent 38% on salaries alone. And then we'll see some of the other shit they were spending that money on, because it sure as hell wasn't on their mission. So Time's Up Now, the lobbying arm of the organization, spent $157,155 on conferences. And of course, designed to build community and spark critical conversations about gender equity. Yeah, it's the whole started a conversation bullshit. A guy gets falsely accused of rape. His entire life gets destroyed. Eventually, he gets proven innocent, and they're just completely unrepentant. Like, well, at least it started a conversation, right? He could be happy about that as his life is fucking ruined. So tax filings show, and in June current year -2, the group co-sponsored a retreat at the Ojai Valley Inn, a luxury resort and spa north of Los Angeles. The retreat was dominated by agents from the Creative Artists Agency who apparently had difficulty deciding on what the core mission should be. Well, that's the strategy right there, isn't it? Like, I ranted before about how websites like YouTube, their GUIs keep changing because their GUI design department wants to keep their job. So they keep remaking everything for that reason alone, just so they can keep their job. And it's kind of the same thing with these agents. Like, the longer it takes them to decide what the core mission is, the more of these resorts they get to go to where they can debate what the core mission is. They pivoted from "let's clean up Hollywood" to "we're going to help all workers," said an attendee who did not want to be identified. And then they just ended up spending more of the money on themselves. According to tax filings, the mission of Time's Up Now is to promote safe, fair, and dignified work for whammons of all kinds. We work to make sure that whammons are free from harassment and other forms of discrimination on the job, have equal opportunity for economic security, and can achieve the highest positions of power wherever they work. But they're only fighting this in cushy, air-conditioned office jobs. You don't see them bringing this shit up with, like, sewage workers. But that's just how it is, man. To this end, the group helped set up the Time's Up Legal Defense Fund in January of current year -2, which supports individuals who've experienced sexual harassment or retaliation at work to come forward to seek justice. And let me see the number again. They and that fund got $312,001. That's enough for one case. One case. At least if we're going by Vic Mignogna's case as an example. The fund helps pay legal fees for select cases and is overseen by the Washington, D.C.-based National Women's Law Center. The defense fund is completely independent of the Time's Up Foundation and Time's Up Now, the website says. And that's the excuse they used for not funding it, huh? In addition to posh conferences, Time's Up Now spent $288,007 on advertising. Advertising, I could understand. If spending that $288,007, if spending that on advertising brought them in, like, say, $500,000 that they wouldn't have otherwise gotten, it was worth it. So the advertising expense, I can understand. And $940,328 on quote-unquote legal costs, with the majority of that figure, $719,522, going to Arnold and Porter K. Scholler, a multinational law firm with a powerful lobbying arm on Capitol Hill. So it was either bribery, or the lawyers just took him for a ride. Like that's kind of what happened to Johnny Depp. I mean, it wasn't lawyers; it was whoever he was using as an accountant. Pretty much just took his fortune and left him with like $100 million tax bill. If you're making decent money, you got to watch out for people trying to steal it from you. Time's Up Now also spent $58,395 on travel. That was probably all travel from their LA locations to slightly north of LA to that spa. How many times do you think they must have visited for that? And $112,435 on Rally, a public relations company, according to the tax filings. Maybe they were just moving money around. Maybe it was just a money laundering operation. The Encino-based organization was founded by lawyers and Hollywood producers and drew on the star-studded backing of Gloria Steinem, Oprah Winfrey, Jessica Chastain, Rosanna Arquette, and was Amira Sorvino in the wake of the current year -3 Harvey Weinstein scandal. So pay attention to the actresses you see in Hollywood going forward, actually. Pay very close attention, because when Harvey Weinstein was still around, untalented but relatively good-looking aspiring actresses could, let's just say, do him some favors, and he'd return the favor by actually giving them a fucking career. So quite a few, all the women who he allegedly abused and then they just turned on him, he lived up to his end of the bargain. He gave them the career that he was supposed to give them for the favors they did him. And now untalented actresses are not going to have a way to let's just say suck their way into higher positions anymore. They're going to have to be working on just talent now. Really sucks for them, huh? The movement was born after Winfrey made a passionate speech at the Golden Globes in January of current year -2. For too long, women have not been heard or believed if they dare to speak the truth to power of those men. But their time is up. Their time is up. Their time is up. And we'll see how that's going to work out for you. We'll see how many aspiring actresses end up landing gigs now when they don't have an easy shortcut anymore. I think Oprah's actually right about this, that their time is up. But once the ruling Hollywood elite falls, do you think these talentless hacks are going to rise up and replace them? Hell no. The disgraced former film producer was accused of sexually harassing dozens of women dating back to the late 1970s. Weinstein was convicted of sexual assault and rape earlier this year and sentenced to 23 years in prison. All the stories I've heard about Weinstein and what went on, nothing was involuntary. It was a business transaction. You had these talentless actresses. The only talent they had was in their lips. And he made them an offer. Like, well, you're literally the at the bottom of the list of 100 actresses we got lined up for this role. But, if you put those lips to use, I could boost you up to the top. Time's Up's global leadership board includes Sorvino, who said Weinstein sexually harassed her in a hotel room in 1995, and actress Alyssa Milano, whose viral current year -3 twat urging whammies to come forward if they have been sexually harassed helped launch the Pound Me Too movement, the worldwide social tsunami that saw thousands of whammons publicize attacks against them. And how many of these high-profile ones ended up being false, though? That's the funny part. The Time's Up movement got off to a bumpy start. Lisa Borders, the former head of the Whammons NBA. Oh, the WNBA, huh? We'll see how well the WNBA would operate if they weren't subsidized by the actual NBA. Although the actual NBA is pretty much going to be dying right now, too. Who was hired to lead or to head up Time's Up in current year -2, spent only 4 months there, according to her LinkedIn page. Borders, who raked in $342,308 in salary in current year -2, according to federal filings, resigned after her 36-year-old son was accused of sexual misconduct, according to reports. So at least she wasn't a hypocrite in this case. I can't see how good of a look that would have been if she stayed. So at least she knew. She took her fucking money. She took the $342,000 and just whatever. If you give me that much money right now, I could live years off of that. And earlier this year, some activists blasted the movement for siding too closely with Hollywood elites and not supporting On the Record, an HBO Max documentary about sexual abuse allegations against hip-hop mogul Russell Simmons. Documentary. Winfrey, who had signed on as an executive producer for the film, abruptly dropped out, citing creative differences and inconsistencies in the accounts of the alleged victims. Oh, so she's not willing to perpetuate the lie if it's her reputation that's attached to it. Time's Up does not sign on to promote films or any other specific project, said the group's communications director, Amanda Harrington, according to The Hollywood Reporter. The National Wayman's Law Center reported that the Time's Up Legal Defense Fund spent $1,747,635 to help 3,000 individuals in its first 6 months. Tax filings show the Time's Up Foundation pledged $132,575 to that fund, while Time's Up Now earmarked $179,426. Tax filings show. The lion's share of the defense fund money came from outside grants made to the Law Center, federal filings show. No surprise right there. While both groups are nonprofit, the only donations to the Time's Up Foundation are eligible for tax deductions. Oh, okay. The group's website says, typically, politically minded nonprofits set up a lobbying arm and a charity in order to raise awareness, influence, and legislation, and also raise cash. That's what we're going to have to start doing, by the way. We're going to have to start playing these fuckers' own game if we hope to gain any power back. We're going to have to start making groups to bribe politicians ourselves. It may be the only way. Like it seriously may be the only fucking way forward. Donations to the lobbying arm Time's Up Now are not eligible for tax deductions. Makes sense because they're just bribing politicians with that money. Time's Up Now took in $3,308,568 in current year -2, and Time's Up Foundation raked in $361,651. So they're more concerned with bribing politicians than actually helping victims. The Time's Up Legal Defense Fund has provided legal resources about sex harassment at work to over 5,000 people, 3/4 of whom identify as low-paid workers. Yeah, man, I'm a freaking millionaire, but I identify as a low-paid worker. Can you give me that free shit now? I mean, it's Hollywood, and it wouldn't surprise me if a few people tried that. So said a spokeswoman for the organization. In addition, the Time's Up Legal Defense Fund has committed $11 million in direct legal and public relations support for survivors. Survivors of what? Making shit up? While most of Time's Up Legal Defense Fund backed cases are ongoing, 86% of the cases have been resolved. Oh, that have been resolved. Yeah, sorry. I was going to say, it's like most of them are ongoing, but 86% have been resolved. Like, that's not how it works. But okay, it was just me being a boomer. I just misread that. So 86% of the cases that have been resolved in favor of the workers the Legal Defense Fund supported. Okay, that's actually a pretty good record. It is. Now, how many of those people do you think were actually innocent? Do you think they were actually victims? And how many of them were just maliciously spreading lies to try to take out someone's career, and now they suddenly had the money to do so? Interesting questions regardless. So
Oh man, I am so excited to tell you guys right now that finally, after about a year of build-up and shilling, we have launched Blade Devil on Indiegogo, and so far it is doing so well thanks to awesome people like you. If you haven't backed it yet, then please check the links in the description and check out Blade Devil on Indiegogo. You will not be disappointed. Looking forward to seeing you there.